Welcome. It's Damon Brown of DamonBrown.net. My main thing is helping you as a side hustler, a solopreneur, or otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. I'm actually going to get us set up on Amazon Live. We'll go from there. Yes, we're going live. So thank you. Thank you for your patience this morning. I know I'm running a little bit late. It's been a really busy morning. Some of it on the personal level. My first mentor in journalism, Jane Briggs-Bunting, I met her when I was at Oakland University. Many years ago over in Detroit. She actually passed away last night. So blessings to her. I'm going to go ahead and throw up the Twitter dedication I gave to her. Very much of the modern times, but I just found out that she passed away about an hour ago. Hence me running a little bit late and a couple other things going on. But without Jane Briggs-Bunting, we wouldn't be talking right now. In fact, when I first started working with her or first met her, I was a teenager, barely a teenager. I think I was like 13, 14. I was an early kid going into school, so I was already in high school. I must have met her sophomore year of high school, so yeah, I was probably like 13 going on 14, little kid. And I was really into being a fiction writer, and that was my thing. In fact, I started writing fiction around the time when I was my little kids' age. I have two kids, they're 7, and as of right now, 5. So they're 7 and 5. So around the time that I was my youngest kid's age, I started writing fiction. And then, meeting Jane in high school. She was like, have you tried messing with, well, she didn't say messing, but have you tried messing with nonfiction? And I was like, I like making stuff up. I like the adventures of that. And she was like, you might need to learn a little bit more about journalism. Let me show you some stories. And yeah, I'm in my mid 40s. So yeah, I met her 3 decades ago. She had a long illness. She had her family beside her. And I found out that she was in rough shape over the weekend. So at least I was prepared, to get the news this morning. But blessings to Jane. She's actually going to come up a little bit later on, ironically, because I have some news to share. But blessings to Jane, to her husband, who I know has been very loyal and supportive of her as she's been going through what she's going through. We all get older. I've been sick before. We've all been sick before. So just happy to be part of her legacy. And literally, as I said on the Twitter status that I just shared, just pleased that she's leaving such a legacy. And I'm like ridiculously proud to be part of that, and shed some tears earlier today. Probably will shed some more. So blessings to Jane. All right. So my main thing is helping you as a side hustler, solopreneur, or otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. As you can probably tell, my background is journalism. I have 2 degrees in journalism, master's in magazine publishing, and have been a longtime journalist. And then about 7, 8 years ago, actually 8 years ago now, because my eldest is about to turn 8, I became an entrepreneur. And that was at the exact same time I became the primary caretaker of my first son with my partner. And he was about 4 months old. I started my 2 startups. My second startup got really big. It's called Cuddler. If you end up watching the show regularly, we do it, or I do it, because this solo thing. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I do the Bring Your Worst show at this link. Be sure to like, share, comment, and definitely subscribe, because it lets me know that y'all are into it. It also makes it easier for me to structure things, because I know what kind of flow y'all want, and share it with people that care about it. If you've been watching the show at all, then you know that the second startup got really big. It's called Cuddler. I talk about it just in the most recent show, where I feature a quote from Brene Brown and from Oprah. So if you end up clicking on here, you'll catch Monday's show. But with that pivot, I had to figure out how to work with the resources I had. Hence the energy of my new book, Build From Now, How to Know Your Power, See Your Abundance, and Nourish the World. And as I later on end up selling my startup and I'm becoming a public speaker, spoke at TED several times. Again, you can find that on the YouTube channel. And then again, with my coaching after that, I realized it comes down to focus, agility, time, and energy. Now, if you've been watching the live shows, which the live shows happen every Wednesday, and the Monday and Friday shows are pre-recorded, you'll notice a pattern. So the first week of March of this month, we talked about focus. Then we talked about agility. We talked about time. Today, we're going to talk about energy, how to boost your energy up. And the biggest thing that I learned from Jane but also from other folks, is that there's only going to be a limited amount of space, resources for you to do what you need to do. One of the biggest things I learned from Jane was I was working on an article, and if you know newspaper business, particularly old school, because I come from that era, before the internet really took over. If you understand the old school newspaper setup, you had to send it to the press. You couldn't just press send or upload. Like, it wasn't like that. We had barely had Macintoshes, the original Macintoshes, back when I was in high school. We had to go and still send it to the printer. You see those gigantic printer presses that you see in the old school movies. We're still doing that in the 80s and the 90s. So you had to get stuff to them early. And one of the biggest lessons I learned from her, she was like, I kept working on the story and trying to get the right lead, which is the beginning of it, and all these other details. And she was like, yo, Damon, like, it doesn't matter how perfect the story is if nobody reads it. It doesn't matter how perfect the story is if nobody reads it. In other words, if I could keep making it the perfect story, and I talk about this in Build From Now, I could keep making it the perfect story, but then I'm going to end up missing a deadline. It's not going to get the press, as we call it. It's not going to get the press, and nobody's going to read it in the morning. We had a weekly, I think it was a weekly newspaper at the time in the high school. So it's like, you have to create with what you've got. That, which I learned, again, decades ago from Jane, rest in peace, that's still part of my practice now. And there's so many people that I coach, I do a lot of one-on-one coaching. There's so many people that I coach that are trying to get it together, and they don't quite understand that they need to work with whatever they've got. And I think that's such an important part of it. So today we talked about focus, agility, and time. You can learn more about that on the show programs before. They're all archived for you. Watch them at your leisure, as my European people would say. But today we're going to talk about how to boost that energy and get that energy up. Energy might be the main resource that you have. It's unclear. But what you can do is you can also take my free quiz at buildfromnowquiz.com. Obviously, that's based on the new book. It's 2 minutes long. Again, it's completely free, multiple choice. Take it when you get a chance. That will tell you if focus, agility, time, or energy are the main resources you have right now. And that'll help guide your thinking. Today though, I think I'm trying to say Play-Doh and today at the same time. Today, though, we're going to talk about energy specifically. And just to make sure I cover that, you can learn more about my one-on-one coaching practices and actually buy my books and other things over at damebrown.net. All right. So if you're trying to get your energy together, what we're talking about a lot is longevity. Energy is like time. That's putting the work in, but what we want to talk about is it being not a sprint, but a marathon. Or not a marathon, or not a sprint, but marathon. I had it right the first time. So you want to keep going on whatever you're doing. A lot of times we think of energy in regards to having these bursts. I'm going to do an all-nighter tonight. I want to do 3 all-nighters. I'm going to crush it. I'm going to kill it, blah, blah, blah. If you're familiar with my books, The Ultimate Bites of an Entrepreneur, which you see over my head. If you're familiar with Bring Your Worth, which is the predecessor to Build From Now. And definitely if you've grabbed Build From Now, you know how much I'm frankly against that, because whatever you're doing to nourish the world, as I say in the subtitle of Build From Now, it needs to be sustainable energy. When I first started this YouTube channel, again, over here, I was doing a daily show at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, so I'm here in Las Vegas. I got 2 little kids. We've been sheltering in place for a year as of a few days ago. I have a coaching practice. I'm still a very active journalist. I have a column with Inc. magazine and also with Costco Connection, the magazine that goes to Costco members. I just wrote a book. The book is like 30,000 words. I did that during a pandemic. And I'm going to do a daily show. So I had to turn it back and say, you know what? Maybe it shouldn't be daily. Maybe it should be every other day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. This flow is actually a little bit easier for me and allows me to bring my worth, pun intended, every time I show up versus being worn down. Because if I'm worn down, it doesn't make any sense. When I talk about energy, that's what I'm talking about. When I say boosting your energy, I mean sustainability, ways that you can continue to move forward. All right. So it's fairly brief today. I have like 2 or 3 book recommendations. One of them is a fairly big announcement. That's unfortunately connected to the news I just gave you. So I have the second edition of the Damon Brown Reader. Y'all that have been following my work for a long time might remember the original Damon Brown Reader. And that came out, I was still in San Francisco. So that came out around me a decade into journalism. And it was time for an update. So I'm very proud to have the update. It's the Damon Brown Reader. It's 21 stories from my career. And it's all the way from my early stuff to actually some of the stuff I did for the New Yorker that never ran. Very proud of that work. Some of my best work, I think. Some of my early business journalism, as well as some of the other things that are way more recent, including some essays of mine that ran last year over the summer that were kind of precursors to Build From Now. Some of them are available elsewhere on the internet, but a lot of them are out of print or they never ran. And so it ends up giving a nice cohesive discussion about the things that I talk about culturally. And so it's almost like a good precursor to Build From Now, where the stuff that I talk about that in there, as far as having to work within systems. And when you work within systems, then you're able to understand the systems and then figure out how to circumvent the systems, create your own system, or refine the systems that you're currently in. That's literally what Build From Now is about. The systems and the 4 resources, your focus, agility, time, and energy that you all have. The seeds of this are in the Damon Brown Reader. So I'm super proud for it to come out. It's coming out April 28th. So almost exactly a month from now. I think it's about 5 weeks from now. So it'll be out April 28th. I am geeked about it because it's a nice compendium, particularly for folks that Build From Now, like this one, is my 25th book. 25 books. I can't believe it myself. So there are literally 24 books before this. The Damon Brown Reader gives an overview as far as the discussions that led up to Build From Now. And we're also going to have a couple excerpts from some of the other books. So you'll be able to get a taste of all the different things, see some of the earlier arguments. But not only am I bringing this up now, because number one, it's going to come out in 5 weeks. So I want to make sure that y'all had an inside track on it. That's number one, of course. Number two, it's funny that I was planning on mentioning it today because, again, my first journalism mentor, the reason that I was in journalism, Jane Briggs-Bunting, actually passed away last night. And the book is, ironically enough, dedicated to her because she's the one that got me my start. So it's that nice, what's the word I'm looking for? Serendipity, kind of like getting a wink from the universe. So blessings to Jane for giving me my start in journalism and showing me the way. The third reason I'm bringing it up, though, is that it's also a representation of energy. Again, I became a journalist 21 years ago. It'll be 21 years Labor Day. And I don't mean a journalist like, as in I started writing journalism. I mean a journalist as far as that became my living. Post-grad school, I hit the ground running, became a journalist, a full-time journalist immediately after that. In my case, I was a freelancer, so I worked for a ton of different publications, hence me wanting to do the Damon Brown Reader because there wasn't really a place where all my work is collected together. That's another discussion as far as getting deeper into intellectual property and things of that nature. But luckily, I own the rights to most of my stuff, so I'm proud and happy to share it with y'all. But if you're doing something for 21 years, you can't rush it. There were times when I was much younger where I was trying to push. I'm going to get into Smithsonian Magazine. I'm going to get into Playboy. I'm going to get into New York. I'm going to do it right now. Sometimes you need that kind of energy. But if you're actually going to have a career, you see me stretching it out, you can't be doing that. If I was pushing myself to burnout every time I tried to reach a goal, you and I would not be talking right now. I would have quit because I would have been tired. You can't rush 21 years. That's a full, right. If I had a kid, like when I started my journalism career, I could have a drink with them now. So that's a long time. So think about the way that you're structuring your life. And I talk about that more again in Build From Now. Think about the way that you're structuring your life. Is that sustainable in the long term? Now I'm talking to you, you might be saying long term is 1 year, is 5 years. As I quote Jay-Z in there in the Build From Now, you're going to play for now or you're going to play for forever. My mentor, Jane, she played for forever. She was fighting for journalists and our journalism rights until literally the day she died, yesterday. Like, she was still fighting from a hospital bed. She was still fighting. I was reading about it. She's still fighting for us. That's what I'm on. What systems do you have in place? What kind of energy do you have for the stuff you're trying to do? Try not to curse here. Stuff you're trying to do. What kind of energy are you willing to put into it? Where you can be talking 21 years from now, sharing the progress and the impact you made on the world. I don't think it's a matter of me being special, and I don't think it's a matter of Jane being special. I think it's a matter of knowing where your energy lies. Why are you doing what you're doing? You know, word to Simon Sinek, start with why. Why are you doing what you're doing? My why has changed over the years and more evolved, but my thing is helping you understand that you do not have to sacrifice everything to make your entrepreneurial mark. You can make your creative mark and not lose everything. That's it. And as you read the Damon Brown Reader, it's available for pre-order. So if you're liking what you're hearing, pre-order it now. That I would so appreciate that. And it also gives a good signal that the book needs to be out there. As you read the Damon Brown Reader, you'll see that a lot of the philosophies I've talked about were embedded into these articles that I did for Playboy, that I did for the New Yorker, that I did for New York Post, and all the different publications that I wrote for. It's in there. That's why I have this energy today. I've been in the game for 2 decades. I still have all this energy, right? Still can barely sleep because I got more stuff to do. That's tapping into your energy. It's not going for the rush. It's going for the longevity, all right? So Damon Brown Reader, I'm super proud of it. April 28th. You can pre-order it on Kindle, and it'll be coming on other platforms within the next week or two. So pretty much however you want it, you're going to be able to get it by April 28th. But you can pre-order it on Kindle right now. Amazon, thank you for your support. All right, so if we're going to talk about energy, we have to talk about No Mud, No Lotus by Thich Nhat Hanh. And I think I finally can pronounce his name correctly. He was actually ill the last time I read up on him a few months ago, so hopefully he's doing better, or at least in a place of peace. So blessings to him. He's a Vietnamese Buddhist monk. I've mentioned him once or twice. My partner and my wife actually got the book years ago, and then I ended up seeing her copy and read through it, and I couldn't put it down. Fascinating book. I actually quote the book quite a few times, and again, my new book, Built From Now. And it comes down to energy, because the book, in my opinion, in my filter, is about where you place your energy. To give a quick overview of the book, really simple concept. The lotus plant, which is known for being beautiful, and of course there's the lotus position, which is a terminology in Buddhism, and also I believe in yoga as well, but I don't know yoga as well. But getting into the lotus position, you're shaped like the flower. So it's a beautiful flower that's known in Eastern Asian culture, I think particularly in Vietnam. The way it's created is by a bunch of mud. And so there's that power there as far as saying, there's so much mud, there's so much intensity, there's so much grit, and as I'm dealing with my stuff, with a friend of mine passing away, we can take it to right now where that's a part of life. The beauty of life is knowing that the mud is going to come, and it's going to result in these beautiful things that are happening later, a better appreciation of what you got. This ties back to energy as far as what kind of energy you're going to put into what you got, right? So you're going to have rough days. You're going to have times, I'll give my examples. You're going to have days where your book doesn't sell. You're going to have moments where you're not going to feel like getting out of bed, even if you're energized for it. The thing is to have that persistence and know why you're getting out of bed. What is the reason? My reason for doing this is to help you figure out how you can make an impact on the world with the resources that you've got. You are my motivation, right? And so any mud that comes with that, I know it's going to end up with you being the lotus. You're the reason why I'm creating. You're the reason why I've been coming out with 7 books in the last 5 years. When I say it out loud, I shudder, but it is what it is. So that power there comes from knowing why I'm doing it. No Mud, No Lotus gets it down pat. Tiny book, my copy, my wife's copy. I think she has her copy. I'm already possessing it. She has her copy. So unfortunately, I don't have the copy with me, but it's a tiny little book. It's about the size of my book, Bring Your Worth. So it's something you can read probably in an evening, but it's going to stay on your shelf. Again, my wife and I, like, we have a copy that's going back and forth. She's looking for it the other day, which is why I don't have it with me. Fascinating, awesome book. And even if you end up buying my new book, Build From Now, you'll see 3, 4, maybe 5 really good quotes. So blessings to Hanh, and I hope he's doing well wherever he happens to be, and I hope he's at peace. But he left a serious legacy with that book. So please grab it. It's so worthwhile. All right. And the last one, as y'all know, is a favorite of mine, Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. As I said before, I was not an Elizabeth Gilbert fan. Eat, Pray, Love missed me with that. I wasn't feeling it. And then someone had recommended Big Magic, and it was one of the first audiobooks I really got into around the time that my son was born. And of course, if you're a hands-on parent, you got to have your hands on them. And so you can't be flipping through a book leisurely, sitting on the couch. You have to listen to stuff. That's the only way you're going to get your knowledge. So she was actually one of the first audiobooks I listened to. Blew my mind. I listen to it probably every year to 18 months, something like that. So yeah, right. Exactly. Big cosign. Oh, and thank you, Sana. I appreciate it. And it was good connecting with you over in Mumbai a month ago, because I had a speaking engagement over there. So it was good to connect with all my Mumbai brothers and sisters over there. So thank you. You're inspiring as well. And it was good to connect with you at the conference. And so it really hit a spark for me, because it's a book about creating, and in a very practical way. Because you have books that say this is how you write a sentence. You have books that say this is how you get inspired, which kind of tough. You can't tell people how to get inspired. I don't think so, but that's my strong opinion on it. But this book is really about the practice of being creative. And I say practice, in a very Seth Godin way. I say practice as in this is part of your routine. People aren't artists. They practice art. I'm not a coach. I practice coaching. I'm not an author. I write books. There's a distinction, because as soon as that becomes your identity, then sometimes that can actually make you think that you can't be anything else. There ends up being a separation there somehow. It's like me never painting and saying, I want to be a painter, but I wasn't born one. But that's not true. I can pick up one of my kids' paintbrushes right now, and I become a painter. In other words, creativity isn't this. I'm trying to remember, Elizabeth. It's a long book. I think the audiobook's like 12 hours, but it's absolutely worth it. You can grab a physical book if you don't want to do that. So there's a lot of great passages in there. So many good passages. I think the term that she uses is that we don't want to be too precious with the art that we do. We don't want to be too precious with art that we do. Again, flipping it back to my mentor, Jane, who I talked about at the beginning, who passed away last night. That's what she was saying when I was trying to be perfect with these news stories I was sending out. She's like, look, you can have the perfect news story and be precious about it. But if you don't make the deadline, it's not going to matter. No one's going to read it. And if your main intention, back to intention, if your main intention is to make an impact on the world, then I think if the word is you're obfuscating your intention. You're missing that if you're trying to be perfect about it, right? And I've done a TED Talk about it. In fact, I'll throw up the link for my show. You can subscribe over there. But if you go to my YouTube channel, I have a TED Talk talking about why you should strive for good enough. I talk about perfectionism. And perfectionism usually doesn't have to do with anybody else. It has to do with how you feel about you, because you're trying to make things so perfect that you won't get criticized. I literally just did a show about it on Monday. Again, you can find at the link, featuring Brene Brown and Oprah, where it's like, if you're trying to prevent other people from not liking you, you're not going to make an impact on the world. There's lots of people, you can go on Amazon or wherever, there's lots of people that do not like my work. And at a certain point, it's like, well, it's not for you, because if you're trying to make an impact on the world, then it can't be based on a place of safety. She gets into that again in Big Magic, and it's such a wonderful book. If you're trying to make an impact in the world, you need it on your shelf. I mentioned the book like once or twice in Build From Now, but it's actually a very big part of the narrative of my previous bestseller, The Ultimate Bite-Sized Entrepreneur Trilogy, because I was actually really into the book when I was writing this series a few years ago. So if you haven't grabbed this, check it out. But definitely check out Big Magic. Fascinating, awesome book. Again, I wasn't even a fan of hers, and it made me a hardcore fan. Her TED Talks are really good too. I have some links to those over on my YouTube channel. All right, so those are the 3 that I would recommend. Dan Brown Readers coming out April 28th. It's my 21 stories that represent my journalism over the past 21 years. And you'll see seeds and parts of the discussion from the stuff I talk about in Build From Now, the way I talk about in the predecessor, Bring Your Worth. So I can get it backwards, Bring Your Worth, as well as in The Bites as Entrepreneur, which a lot of you are familiar with since, thank you again, y'all made it a bestseller. So I talk about that in there. No Mud, No Lotus by Thich Nhat Hanh. You need it on your shelf. If you're trying to maximize your energy, you need to figure out what's weighing you down. And that's a big part of my coaching practice, is not saying you need to fix yourself or that you're broken, but that there's certain roadblocks that are preventing you from being your best self and bringing your best self to the table, showing up fully. This is a discussion on that. And like I said, it's ridiculously short. So if you're short on time, just grab it. Just get the book. Finally, Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. Her TED Talks are fire. I mean that in the best way. You go to youtube.com/Brown Damon. I'll show you the link, but I have a couple of them linked on there. Also mentioned her book a few times. It really is about the practice of being creative, not how to become a creative, the practice of being creative. 2 separate things. If you focus on the practice, you don't have to worry about becoming, because you're naturally going to become one. And when we start saying we're going to become something, then that starts to put on, I think, an unrealistic barrier on the type of stuff that we're doing. And it makes us a little bit more of a perfectionist, because we feel like we have to hit a certain standard to be an artist, to be a side hustler, to be a coach, when in reality, all we need to do is show up. Big Magic talks about showing up. Speaking of, I'm going to be keynoting the Authorpreneur conference. That's going to be May 1st and 2nd. Check out the link right there. Yeah, it's about being an author or creator, and particularly writing, fiction or nonfiction, and making a living at it, or at least getting compensated in a way so that you can continue to nourish the world. Because as Seth Godin says, you can't continue to nourish the world if you aren't nourishing yourself. I'm paraphrasing, but that's his basic idea. I'm gonna do a talk based on the book. Got too many books over here. Based on my book, Bring Your Worth. You can actually see a preview of my previous keynotes that talk about it, again, over on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/Brown Damon. I'll throw the link up, but you can use the code Damon15, put that in, and you get a nice discount on it, on me. So I'm happy to have y'all come through. The conference is really designed because the founder of the conference, she really was tired of writers' conferences that are costing several $1,000s. I can attribute to that, or I can attest to that. I can attribute myself to attest to that. Because back when I started, again, back in the early days, around the time that the articles that in the Damon Reader were written 21 years ago, you see ads for these writer conferences, and they'd be in, like, I swear to God, they'd be like in Maui or something. And it's like, pay 7-8 G's and you can be in the same room as, I don't know, John Grisham or something. It's just like, but you're not really, no offense to John Grisham, like, I don't have anything personal against him. Just someone I was thinking of that was really popping at the time. But that was as close as you could get. And I'm honored to be asked to keynote this type of conference because it is affordable. Again, you can check it out. You're paying like $100 to come through. You use a discount, you're paying even less than that. So to be affiliated with a conference like that, to be speaking to folks like yourself that might be at the beginning of their career or trying to pivot into a writing career, and also, again, the Bring Your Worth energy, where what you're creating, as I talked about with Big Magic, what you're creating is actually worth something, financially and otherwise. It is worth your time. So come through. It's May 1st and 2nd. I'll also be having a deep dive session post-conference. We call it the after party. That's going to be happening, I think we're aiming for the afternoon of May 2nd. So yeah, put it in your calendar, come through. Again, use the code, tell them Damon sent you. But I'm super excited about the conference. And we're going to be virtual, so you can do it from your home. If you got kids, get some get some care or put your kids to the side, take care of your business, and go from there. All right, so take the free quiz over at buildfromnowquiz.com. You can learn more about your resources and about my new book. And if you're feeling this program, be sure to like, share, comment, and most importantly, subscribe. That, again, helps me get some juice. Speaking of energy, that's why I'm talking to y'all. I'm like, hey, need some energy here. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe if you're loving the programming. It's just me talking to a computer aside from the one-on-one coaching and other things that I do. So just being able to connect with y'all is a privilege, and subscribing helps me understand and know that you're liking the programming. I've been going nonstop since December. It's been about 4 months, 5 months, might be 5 months. Every single Wednesday, I'm hanging out with y'all at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that gives me a signal that this is worth your time. It's definitely worth mine. I want to make sure I'm representing for y'all. And again, Build From Now is available on all the major platforms. I think I missed a link up there. I totally missed the link. Sorry, guys. But you can go to damonbrown.net and find it up there. Like I said, it's been a long morning. damonbrown.net. You can get the book directly from me. And then you can always look me up on Amazon or your favorite platform. You can also grab it on Audible. I have an awesome audio book. I think it's the best audiobook I've ever done, because I've done audiobooks to all my books over the past 7-8 years. And so appreciating this time with y'all. Again, particularly as I reminisce of my mentor who I lost recently and the journey so far. And I'm glad that I'm able to do this with y'all. Anyway, remember that you can always bring your worth and that you can always build from now. Everyone, take care.